The Green River, a lifeline for wildlife, a sanctuary for countless species, a place of calm and serenity where nature's beauty is on full display. But in the early 1980s, a darkness descended upon this idyllic landscape, casting a long and terrifying shadow. Women, young and vulnerable, began to disappear without a trace, leaving their families in anguish. Their bodies, often discarded in or near the river, bore the marks of a brutal and merciless killer, a predator with no remorse. Fear gripped the community as the body count rose and the sense of safety vanished. Who was this predator stalking the shadows? The question haunted everyone. The answer, as the authorities would discover, was a seemingly ordinary man leading an extraordinary double life, hiding in plain sight. His name was Gary Ridgway, and he would come to be known as the Green River Killer, a name that would instill fear for years to come. The Green River Killer case would become one of the most infamous and haunting in American history, a dark chapter that still resonates. Ridgway's reign of terror spanned decades, leaving a trail of shattered lives and unanswered questions in its wake, a legacy of pain. His crimes, as we will discover, were as shocking as they were numerous, a grim reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface. Gary Leon Ridgway was born in Salt Lake City, Utah, in 1949. His childhood was troubled, marked by a domineering mother and a strained relationship with his father. Some would later speculate that these early experiences planted the seeds of anger and resentment that would fester within him. As a young man, Ridgway was unremarkable. He was quiet, even shy, and blended easily into the background. There were glimpses of darkness, however. He struggled to control his impulses, exhibiting early signs of voyeurism and a disturbing fascination with death. This fascination, coupled with a deep-seated rage towards women, would eventually manifest itself in the most horrific ways imaginable. The first bodies surfaced in the summer of 1982. Young women, most of them runaways or involved in sex work, were found discarded along the banks of the Green River, their bodies bearing signs of strangulation and brutal assault. The police were baffled. The victims, often marginalized and living on the fringes of society, seemed to vanish into thin air, leaving few clues behind. As the body count climbed, so too did the pressure on the authorities. The Green River Killer case dominated headlines, spreading fear and uncertainty throughout the region. A task force was assembled, dedicated to hunting down the elusive killer. Detectives interviewed countless individuals, chased down dead-end leads, and painstakingly pieced together the fragments of a puzzle that seemed impossible to solve. Amidst the mounting pressure and despair, a glimmer of hope emerged. Forensic science, still in its infancy, began to play a crucial role in the investigation. The discovery of trace evidence, such as fibers and hairs, at the crime scenes provided tantalizing clues. The Green River Task Force, determined to leave no stone unturned, embraced these new techniques, hoping they would lead them to the killer. Profilers were brought in to help understand the killer's psyche. They painted a picture of a cunning and methodical individual, someone familiar with the area and likely leading an outwardly normal life. The profile, while helpful, did little to narrow down the suspect pool. The Green River Killer, it seemed, was a phantom, moving unseen and leaving a trail of death and despair in his wake. Section 5. False Dawn. The investigation stalls. Years turned into a decade. The Green River Killer Task Force, once a beacon of hope, found themselves mired in frustration. Leads ran cold, tips turned out to be dead ends, and the killer remained elusive. The case, once a national obsession, began to fade from public view. But for the families of the victims, the pain and the questions remained as raw as ever. The Green River Killer, it seemed, had vanished into thin air. The investigation, though never officially closed, went cold. The families of the victims were left to grapple with their grief and uncertainty, haunted by the knowledge that the monster who had stolen their loved ones was still out there somewhere in the shadows. Section 6, A Ghost from the Past. DNA technology changes everything. The late 1990s and early 2000s saw a revolution in DNA technology. What was once a nascent field was now capable of unlocking secrets hidden within the very building blocks of life. The Green River Task Force, though depleted and disillusioned, never gave up hope. They had meticulously preserved evidence, believing that one day science might provide the breakthrough they desperately sought. In 2001, their patience was rewarded. Advances in DNA analysis allowed investigators to re-examine old evidence with newfound clarity. Samples taken from the victims, preserved for decades, were compared to a national DNA database. The results, when they came back, sent shockwaves through the investigation. There was a match. Section 7. The mask slips. Ridgway is finally apprehended. The DNA evidence pointed to Gary Ridgway, a seemingly ordinary man who had been interviewed by the task force years earlier. Despite his unassuming appearance, Ridgway had managed to evade capture for decades, leaving a trail of fear and sorrow in his wake. He had been a suspect, but without concrete evidence he remained a free man. The task force had always felt that he was hiding something, but the lack of definitive proof kept him out of their grasp. Armed with this new information, detectives placed Ridgway under surveillance, meticulously building their case. They followed his every move, documenting his actions and interactions, ensuring that no detail was overlooked. They knew they had one chance to bring this monster to justice. The team worked tirelessly, driven by the hope of finally ending the reign of terror that had gripped the community for so long. On November 30th, 2001, Gary Ridgway was arrested. The moment was a culmination of years of relentless effort and dedication by law enforcement. He was apprehended outside the factory where he worked as a truck painter, a job that had given him access to remote areas and allowed him to blend seamlessly into everyday life. His ordinary job had been the perfect cover for his heinous activities. The arrest sent shockwaves through the community and beyond. People who had lived in fear for years could finally breathe a sigh of relief, knowing that the man responsible for so much pain was in custody. The Green River Killer, the boogeyman who had haunted their dreams for so long, had a name and a face. The community could now begin the long process of healing, knowing that justice was finally being served. Section 8. A chilling confession. Ridgway admits to his crimes. Faced with overwhelming DNA evidence, Gary Ridgway confessed to the murders of 48 women. His confession, delivered in a calm, matter-of-fact tone, sent chills down the spines of even the most seasoned investigators. He described his crimes in horrifying detail, revealing a depraved mind capable of unimaginable cruelty. Ridgway led authorities to the remains of several victims, some of whom had been missing for over 2 decades. The discovery of their remains, while heartbreaking, brought a measure of closure to families who had waited years for answers. As the full scope of Ridgway's crimes came to light, so too did the chilling realization that he had been hiding in plain sight all along. Section 9. Justice and its aftermath. The legacy of the Green River Killer. In 2003, Gary Ridgway struck a deal to avoid the death penalty. This deal was a pivotal moment in the long and harrowing investigation that had spanned decades, leaving countless families in anguish and the community in fear. In exchange for leading investigators to the remains of his victims, he pleaded guilty to 48 counts of aggravated first-degree murder. This cooperation was crucial in bringing some closure to the families of the victims, who had been waiting for answers for so many years. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. This sentence ensured that Ridgway would spend the rest of his days behind bars, unable to harm anyone else. Justice, though delayed, had been served. The courtroom was filled with a mix of relief and sorrow as the long-awaited verdict brought a sense of finality to a painful chapter. The legacy of the Green River Killer continues to cast a long shadow over the Pacific Northwest. The haunting memories of his crimes linger, a grim reminder of the darkness that once gripped the region. The case serves as a stark reminder of the vulnerability of those living on the margins of society and the importance of never giving up hope, even in the face of unimaginable darkness. It underscores the need for vigilance and compassion in protecting the most vulnerable among us. The victims, though gone, will never be forgotten. Their memories live on in the hearts of their loved ones and in the collective consciousness of the community. Their stories and the tireless efforts of those who sought justice for them serve as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of hope in the face of despair. The community's unwavering determination to seek justice and remember the victims is a powerful legacy that will continue to inspire future generations.